going to record. Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I'm Mona Duncan, and today we're going to be talking about frustration with the same old, and how that we maybe can kind of begin to overcome that. So let me share the screen with you so I can bring up the PowerPoint, share and bring it all the way up. And this is, looping the loop. So what it is, this is an 8-week pleasure pain syndrome that I've been doing all of June and now into July. And today we've looked at the importance of behaving, what our behavior is, the problem of being needy, and we're all needy, and it's okay to be needy, and it's okay to have our needs met. We have this internal, everything is coming from internally. And sometimes it's really hard to understand that. We're looking at what all the stuff that's out here, and we can smell it and we can see it, even though we can't touch it maybe. But yet there's something inside of us that drives us to succeed, to become whole and complete. And then we need to learn how to be balanced in things so that we, aren't leaning one side rather than another. So then we're going to be looking at today, looping the loop. So the pleasure pain syndrome, and a syndrome, what is it? What does it mean? A syndrome is things that we continually do habitually without looking at inspections. If looking to that, is this effective? Is this what I really want to do? Or am I doing it because I'm habitual that way? And so all too often we just loop the loop again and again and again, because we are searching for as much pleasure and success as possible, while at the same time we try to avoid as much pain and failure as possible. The thing of it is that we can begin to understand either one of those, the failure or the success, that we can become more effective as human beings. So it's looking at the frustration of the same old. And we as human beings, we all choose positive or negative behaviors because of internal desires or actions or motivations. It's internal. And again, we get so inundated with what we can see and hear and what's external that maybe we want to have something like that it's hard to realize that it's coming from what's inside, from our thinking and doing and feeling in our wisdom heart. And so we all choose to either please or displease because of internal wants or needs. We either maybe want to give something to someone, and we just think that would be the most grand thing and how they would love it and want it and appreciate it. And they just, throw it in the back seat because it's not a big deal. It's not anything they really want. So we choose to all that we do, we're choosing to please, or maybe we're choosing to displease. We want to do something in spite of them, or we want to do something to spite them. And it's because of our internal wants or needs. So the bottom line is, and no matter what the calculating or the subtracting or the division or the multiplication is, when we get down to the bottom line is we cannot control another person's behavior. That we are the only person we can control. That no one can make another person start something or do something. So we're going to be looking at how do we shift our mentality so that the reality is internal as opposed to external. So think about what you think about. What do you do? What do you say? What is your tone of voice? What is your facial expressions? Gain control over negative feelings by choosing positive thinking behavior. It's not to say that it's not sad, that it's not hurtful, that it was not critical. But if we can begin to look at the fact that I can overcome that, I can learn that, I go with positive behavior thinking. And to recognize that we can only control ourselves. that another something has hurt us in some way or another, maybe emotionally, they, tromped on our needs, uh, but we can only control ourselves and whether or not we are going to be very, very wounded by what someone else said or did. To become self-accepting and non-critical. And that can take a lot of work to work on, is to being accepting and non-critical. It's realizing, well, that's the way they are. And hopefully there can be some kind of a change that would make it much more pleasant to be around that particular person, whether it's a relative or whether it is a neighbor or whether it is someone you've never met before or whether it's a coworker. Looking at those different things. To gain flexibility and personal insights into what you value. To really know that, this is something that's of value to whether, and to understand that. To learn to deal effectively with complaints. If someone's complaining to you, how can you receive it without having too much pushback, or deal effectively with complaining, whether it's you that's doing the complaining or someone that's complaining toward you. And then to get along better with the people in your life as we begin to shift and look at our mentality, what we're thinking and what we're doing. And it can increase our happiness and our peace. And so, does all that sound too good to be true? Well, it really is true. Choice theory, developed by Dr. William Glasser, helps us to become aware of the internal motivation of our behavior, that it's all inside rather than the outside, and that you can dramatically change your perspective and gain effective control over your behavior. And so this begins to allow for rapid changes in many areas of our life. So an axiom, I'd like to go over the 10 axioms of reality therapy and choice theory. And what is an axiom? It's a proverb. It's a truism. It's a wise saying. It's something that may be repeated, and we may not even believe it in the repeating of it, but it's something that eventually, and it's a proverb. It's a truism. It does have some wisdom there. So we're going to go through this rather quickly, but there's 10 axioms, and one is that the only person whose behavior we can control is our own. And all we can give another person is information. And all long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. And that the problem relationship is always part of our present life, because we have a tendency to store those things maybe well, it's good to store them in a positive way, but sometimes we store them in negative ways. And so if there is a problem, it's because we are looking at it in someone else as being just like so-and-so. And it may have some truth to it, or it may not. What happened in the past has everything to do with where we are today. But we can only satisfy right here, right now. Grief the week. This is looking at the fact that the only moment we have any yes or no to is this moment right here, right now. And so everything to do with what we are today. And we can only satisfy who we are now and our basic needs right now, and plan to continue satisfying them for the rest of the day and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And we can only satisfy our needs by satisfying the pictures that's in our quality world, or that's in our wisdom heart, those things that is true and positive and accurate and dependable. So the seventh one is all we can do is behave. And we're always behaving, whether that is positively or negatively, whether it is actively or inactively. We're always behaving. And all of our behavior is total. And it's made of 4 components. We're always acting, we're always thinking, we're always feeling, and we always have an internal physiology that's keeping our heart beating, that's having our digestive system, that is doing all kinds of things to keep us alive and healthy and thinking and acting and feeling and being a part of our humanity. And it's called our total behavior, those four primary thoughts. And that all behavior is chosen, but we only have direct control over the actions we take and the thoughts we think. And we can control our feelings and our physiology to a degree indirectly by how we choose to act and to think. This may be difficult to understand if you have not been aware of it previously, but it really is powerful once you can begin to see, well, you can begin to see mentally and emotionally how this works. And all total behavior is designated by verbs, or it's named by the part that is most recognizable. For example, we could say, I am sad. And that's a verb, and that would help to designate what is going on in your particular life. So our wants versus our needs, we have both. We have need things that we need, and it's okay to be needy and to have them met. But sometimes we go with what we want. And so the adult who acts out, kind of acting childlike, is demonstrating an unsatisfying behavior and demanding their way. Disconnecting from love and belonging leads us to engaging in power. Because if we cannot discuss, if we cannot understand, if we cannot articulate well enough to say what we're wanting to say or to hear what the other person is in, and we kind of disconnect from the love and belonging that helps us to like all of mankind and humanity and get along and have peace, then we begin to engage in power. And power gives a false impression of fulfillment. If you get loud enough and strong enough and bold enough, until it's the false impression that, boy, they're really somebody powerful and important, until it begins to dawn on us that our behavior is being less and less effective, that we may be getting louder and louder, but we're pushing people away more and more and more rather than drawing them to us. And the answer to rebellion is better relating. And it always starts with the self. How can I relate with me in a way that is comfortable, but not only comfortable, is a way that is connecting with others, whether they be neighbors or complete strangers. So looking at the pleasure pain syndrome, and syndrome, it's a pattern, it's a habit, it's kind of something we come up with and keep doing and may not even be aware of the fact of how we are. It's that internal either thinking or maybe even saying it out loud or to others that I can't help it, that's just the way I am. And that may be the way we have become. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he, or so he becomes. And so we maybe think we can't help it. We may think that's just the way I am. But until we really put some steps to the action or some thoughts to the thinking, that we might can overcome. The weaker we are, the less options we have. The more powerful, often the problem with pleasure, wanting the reward, or pain, giving the punishment, is that they give the individual a false sense of being in control. You see, whenever we have negative pleasure, whenever we want to placate someone, when we want them to quit being whatever they're doing, and so let's give them all the pleasure they can have. Let's give them the food, yes, agree with them, all that kind of stuff. But what it does is it leads to pain. And the positive pain leads to pleasure. Now that sounds so controversial, but that positive pain, whenever we realize, ouch, that comment hurt, it was real. It's just tearing me apart because of what they said, what they did, what I'm thinking they're meaning. But as we can understand that positive pain, that maybe there was an ounce of truth in it, then it can begin to lead to the fact, well, maybe that's the way I've been, and I think that I can't help it, but maybe I can overcome it. Maybe I can choose to be more relatable. and that neither is effective long term. Doing all kinds of things to be negative towards somebody, to fix them, to show them, to whatever, or giving the rewards and let's doing this and doing this and doing this. None of those are long-term effective. So what are some facets of relating as we begin to relate with? Well, be quick to correct errors in yourself, in not necessarily in another. So we're looking at the pleasure pain syndrome within us. And to look at the quality, to begin to see others as worthwhile, as capable, as maybe they can learn, maybe there can be a connection here. And then the depth of how we can relate, how we can communicate with them, how we can have maybe some common goals and likes, or even common goals and dislikes that could still help us to relate to one another. Because, you know, we can help to reinforce values and ideas and begin to have things that we can have some commonality together. So here's a couple of valuable quotes from Dr. Glasser and from Dr. Glasser says, what we must understand is that the only life we can control is our own. And in almost all instances, we can choose to change. Yeah, sometimes that changing can be difficult. Nothing we do is caused by what happens outside of us. It's how we respond to it. It's how we relate to it. It's how we see it, how we think about it, how we feel about it. And then Barnes Boffey talks about creating a new end in your head today. And we looked at the front that we're looking at examining our mentality. So create a new you, a new end in your head today. That's just the way I am. I can't help it, blah, blah, blah. Look at how maybe you, if you could help it, if you could do better. And then do today what that end you would be doing when you get there. Yeah, when you get it, you can't go back. When you get it, when you begin to realize that, you know what, I do have the ability to sit up straight. I do have the ability to be more kind than to be unkind. I do have those abilities. And create that new end in your head today. So just a couple of questions here that we can talk about as we stop the recording is that what are the key elements covered? So what does that mean for me personally, for you personally? And now what? Do I want to take charge of my life, or do I want to just keep on keeping on? So think you can do it? Well, I think you can. So we'll close out, and many blessings to all.